In the glow of the screen, he's a warrior brave. Thomas and Matthew, their voices don't cave. Candace throws bombs filled with venomous lies, but armed with the truth, they'll cut through the side. Science is armor, they stand tall and bold. Gish Gallop girl, you won't take the fall. Truth is our weapon, we'll answer the call. Stand by our side as we battle the lies. With facts on our lips, we'll ignite the skies. With logic as guide, they traverse the storm. Dissecting the claims, they'll help keep us warm. No fear in their hearts, knowledge is the key. For babies, they fight for a future that's free. Together they rise, united and clear. Gish Gallop freer, Gish Gallop girl, you won't take the fall. Truth is our weapon, we'll answer the call. Stand by our side as we battle the lies. With flags on our lips, we'll ignite the skies. The power of truth will forever hold sway the way. The power of truth will forever hold sway. With hearts full of courage, we'll light the way.
Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Gish Gallop Girl, episode 34. I am your main researcher and podcast all-around guy, Thomas Anderson, and with me is...
Matthew Anderson.
Yep, my son, my kid, as always here at the show. So you just heard the swing version of this week's theme. I like it. It's staying. I think Matthew likes it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, we always give it a listen before we put those things up.
Yeah, that might turn out bad if we'd gone with just the first one it pumped out.
Yeah. The Donna AI app. Now, I don't know if they do this for everybody, but I bought access to that thing for a year. There is some other theme song business that I want to mention in just a minute here, but I bought access to it for a year. And what it does when you do that is, you put in all the information to build your song, and then it offers to make a second version for free that doesn't count against your credits. Mm-hmm. I have almost always gone with the second version of the song in the last 3 episodes because it's like, well, goddamn, you could have got it right the first time? Fuck.
I wonder if it sits back and analyzes it and goes, maybe I should just produce the refund before I...
I have consistently, since it started offering a second version, and it's the same lyrics.
Yeah.
It's the same lyrics in both songs, but it'll be better music. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, well, maybe it knows it's fucking up, and it's like, okay, that was a pass. I just woke up. What the fuck was, So, something else that I want to talk about before we get into the episode here. Recently, I put our podcast up on YouTube. They finally made it easy to put up an audio-only podcast, which was pretty cool. But they put all the episodes up, but then I got the notice that 2 of the episodes were taken down. I appealed the takedowns, and they put one of them back up, but they ruled against me on the other one. The reason was medical misinformation. Now, the section they ruled against me on was a clip in which Candace was speaking near the end of the last episode. So episode 33 is not up on YouTube and likely never will be.
Because of Candace Owens.
Yeah. So moving forward, who knows how long any of them will be on YouTube. For now, we'll keep pushing episodes that way. Oh, Squishy has joined the party. For now, we'll keep pushing episodes that way, but since we're not monetized anyway, it's no sweat off my sack if YouTube goes away, tomorrow. In other news, I have decided that I want to put a theme song together in the future with out-of-context clips of Candace and in-context clips of Candace saying the dumbest possible shit. If I do that, it'll probably be the theme song moving forward.
Yeah.
But it's going to take some time because what I've been doing is I've been sending myself little notes of when to go and pull an episode of hers that I've been listening to. Because, like I said before, I've been listening to a slow run up of all the ones that we missed.
Yeah.
Listening for clips and stuff to pull for the show. Well, I've heard a couple over the last couple of days, and I just sent myself notes on them because I'm like, okay, these in a song could be really funny. I kind of like what DJ Danarchy did with the theme song over at Knowledge Fight quite some time ago, and he's done other theme songs for them since. I'm not saying that I would... he's done them for free because he's cool.
Yeah.
And he's a fan of that show. I'm not going to approach him about doing one. I want to try to do one. Now, that said, I would probably use music from Donna because I am not a musician.
Nor am I.
Right. But it would be fun to try to pull off.
Oh, yeah.
So that's something that I'm going to be working on in the background. Don't expect it anytime soon. Y'all are going to get AI-written songs for quite a while at the start of these shows. And for whatever reason, Matthew is inspecting my kitty.
Yeah, she's got a... Okay, so... Squishy here has a bit of a blackhead issue.
Yes, she does.
And it seems to have reared up again in her chin. So.
Yeah.
She loves the process.
Yeah, of
but
course.
she also hates the process because of how I have to hold her head.
Yeah.
It's not in any way hurtful to her. It's just an uncomfortable angle.
Yeah, she's laying on the bed right now.
But also
doing this. But anyway, so for now, we're going to continue with Candace Owens' misunderstanding of the DTaP vaccine. I said it right this time. With Pertussis. This episode starts with Candace getting called out for two of the misinformed points we covered on the last show, where she said,
for me personally, when I showed my husband that number, he was so shocked and he just could not believe it. And I said, yeah, I think we're okay. I think that if our child gets injured, we will know how to effectively clean it. And listen, if it's a very serious injury, if he in the off chance happens to step on a rusty nail that goes, through his foot, yeah, okay, sure, I'm happy to get a tetanus shot when that wound happens, but I do not believe in this as a prophylactic. And so we declined, obviously, to give that shot and all vaccines to our child. But I wanted to just show you guys that because it just kind of shows you the great hoodwinking of statistics and of the CDC and these unrealistic fears that we face as parents. All right, we are going to pause right there, and when we get back, I will be reading some feedback that I got from you guys as well as some questions.
Okay, so we talked about that in our last episode, but here is a loyal, paying Candace Owens viewer calling her out.
Hello and welcome back to A Shot in the Dark. This is episode 8. I am sorry that we took a break last week. I should have informed you, but it was actually my birthday week and I decided to do no social media and no technology and just went away with the family. So this is a little bit delayed, but as you guys know, we are following up from last week's discussion or last episode's discussion on the DTaP vaccine. In the last episode, we talked about tetanus. And I received a flood of comments and emails. Some of the comments were a bit angry at me for misspeaking in one part of that episode. And so I want to clarify an older point that I made. And I'm just going to actually read an email that I received that was to the same effect because the email was a little bit nicer than some of the comments. Okay. So it says, Candace, I am really enjoying your Shot in the Dark series. However, I am dismayed. I was dismayed to hear 2 recent inaccuracies regarding tetanus. Falsehood number 1, you get tetanus from a rusty nail. Falsehood number 2, if you have a reason to believe you were exposed to tetanus, you can then just take the shot after. Here is some accurate information. Number 1, tetanus does not live in rust or on all metals. It comes from a bacteria in the feces of farm animals. It can also be found in soil, usually around farms or in places fertilized with manure. It is so rare in the USA that it affects about 30 people each year and kills approximately 7, which we did cover on the show, how rare it is and how rare it's always been. Number 2, regarding this is the accurate information, the DTaP takes weeks for your body to develop helpful antibodies. If you have just contracted tetanus, then you would be dead long before the vaccine could have provided any benefit. The shot is only helpful for future cases. If you have symptoms like muscle spasms and stiffness following a deep and dirty injury and suspect you are infected, you must immediately ask for the TIG tetanus immunoglobulin injection. This is not the vaccine, but an antitoxin injection that neutralizes the toxins created by the bacterial spores. Many health professionals have no idea what the TIG is, yet it is standard procedure to give a DTaP for every cut, scrape, bite, splinter, or burn, which provides absolutely no benefit at all to the patient's immediate needs. It only makes it more difficult for the patient's body to both heal the wound and potential infection and deal with the nasty additives in the shot. But it is extremely profitable in the emergency room to give them out for almost every injury that comes through the doors. Thank you for giving such an informative speech and being open and willing to listen. And that was from Kara. First.
Okay, I really love and support this. You know, people getting irate because they paid monthly and possibly supported her on Patreon or through other means. Her blatant misinformation and disregard for facts. But now, next we will hear her try to come back from it. But first, the claim from Kara that a hospital profits on giving out tetanus boosters or shots is likely false. I looked up several cases of this and came away with the impression that hospitals don't profit much, if at all, by doing this, especially when Medicaid is involved. But they do keep resources handy by presumably heading off tetanus in this manner. TIG is used in cases of deep wounds and is usually given alongside a tetanus vaccine booster or the full vaccine to cover all bases and hopefully give immunity going forward. That's why you get the tetanus shot. Mm-hmm. Anyway, before we get into that, though, before we get into the next bit, so you may hear the occasional pop sound going on outside. It's because it's July fucking 4th.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if any of that's going to carry over into the microphone.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it as it's been ramping up out there.
Yeah. It's I mean, what time is it right now?
9:24.
Yeah, 9:25. Yeah. So it's getting dark-ish outside. Is it full dark? Not quite. No, it's just
definitely dusk.
It's the twilight period.
Yeah, twilight. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So that's what's going on out there. We do not live in a war zone yet. That all said, though, I mentioned Medicaid in that last bit of material. If you're on Medicaid, I am very sorry for what happened today.
Yeah.
Trump signed the fucking bill.
Of course.
Which is going to take millions of people off of Medicaid. Mm-hmm. Millions of people that cannot physically work 20 hours a week.
Yeah.
Especially not with these dingbats, trying to cancel work from home programs hard.
Yeah.
It's like, look, if these people could work from home,
they'd be fine.
Yeah. But instead, y'all been pushing this whole thing because it's really about the real estate. It's not about getting them into the work culture or any of that fucking noise.
Yeah.
But okay, we're gonna let the cat be the cat for a while. But yeah, anyway, here's Candace again doing a really bad dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge on the subject.
Kara, thank you. And thank you to all of the mothers and doctors who wrote in and basically said the same thing, that it's not true that you get tetanus from a rusty nail. And Also, that it is not true if you believe you are exposed to tetanus that you can just take the shot after. I just wanted to clarify a couple of points though. First and foremost, what I said in my last episode was maybe if my son stepped on a rusty nail and needed to go to the hospital, I would give him a shot. Well, first and foremost, that falsehood did not come from me, which is really important to state. You have to remember that I am a mom and I am on this journey, and it is shocking to me to keep discovering how big pharma has lied, including to me and in my adult life. Like, there are still things that I'm learning in this process, and I'm grateful for you all providing information, but the idea of the rusty nail and everything she said is correct. You can find this online, and even the CDC admits this rusty nail thing is somewhat of a myth, and they're pretending they don't know where it came from. Well, it came from vaccine manufacturers themselves, and I wanted to show you guys this old 1964 advertisement, which I'm going to pull up for you guys right now. It is from Parke-Davis, as a pharmaceutical company, and you can see that it says how to take a big risk out of a little injury. Now, a lot of the advertisements from back then were very much like this. They were always using a child, and they were showing you a picture of a scared child, and then they would say, now make sure you get this vaccine, which will protect your child from ever having to deal with this, whatever it is. And this time they're talking about tetanus. So I'm just going to read this first paragraph. It says, most wounds, regardless of size, carry some risk of infection, but a seemingly trivial puncture wound from a splinter or a rusty nail that pierces the skin should always be regarded with suspicion. It may harbor germs of tetanus or lockjaw, followed by, fortunately, children can be protected from this dangerous disease with injections of tetanus toxoid. So this idea was not made up in my head. It was not made up in other parents' minds who are going to give their child. This idea was created by the vaccine manufacturers themselves. And for those of you that are not aware, by the way, Parke-Davis, if you're wondering what vaccine manufacturer that is or who is Parke-Davis, it was once the largest pharmaceutical company in the world. And today, it is, of course, a subsidiary of Pfizer. So I just wanted to say I was using that example because it's just what we always hear. And this has been the fear that has been put in parents' minds since the 1960s, as you can see from this poster.
Wow, I wonder who bought that. Okay, so Parke-Davis was a huge pharma company, and among their many accolades, they actually made a pharmaceutical-grade cocaine in the late 19th century.
Hallelujah.
As well as oral contraceptives and vaccines and other anti-infective medications. They were acquired by another firm known as Warner Lamert in 1970, which was then made into a subsidiary of Pfizer in the year 2000.
Warner Lamert.
It's probably Werner Lamert. Or, something, yeah. As for her entire dodge about rusty nails and tetanus, I looked into this as well. And I found out that no one person or campaign was responsible for this idea. It just kind of memed itself into the culture. Yeah.
Humanity. We're great at that.
We are great at that. A quote from Dr. William Schaffner. Wow. Damn, I almost said Shatner. Schaffner, an infectious disease specialist, said, quote, somehow someone conjured up this image of stepping on a rusty nail to describe how a person gets tetanus, but it took on a life of its own, end quote. From what else I was able to find with very little effort, rusty nails are usually seen as a good metaphor for a deep puncture wound that can harbor tetanus on the dirty, rusty nail. But as we noted in the last episode, this does happen in about 32% of cases overall, so it's still got legs as a metaphor. Mm-hmm. Candace or her dumb fuck crew could have used this very public information for her audience. But instead, she chose to wing it. Mm-hmm. But she is... Mm-hmm.
Well, I just thought about something else with the whole, you don't get it from the rust. It's not harbored in the rust, but it is harbored in animal feces. What do you think helps cause rust? Rats and mice and bugs and shit pissing and shitting on things.
I mean, well, that or just stuff that metal is coated with or not coated with, as the case may be. I mean, there's no end of reasons why you get rusty metal.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I'm sure there's a scope for it. I don't know what it is. I have not bothered to look it up. That's me being honest. But yeah, no, I mean, like, but there's a lot of rusty metal that's perfectly serviceable. I don't think I've ever seen rebar that doesn't have a coat of rust on it.
No.
Like, I have seen rebar be delivered in stacks to places at job sites I once worked at. And I was like, I thought you said this was new. And they're like, it is. I'm like, why the fuck is it rusty? And they're like, that's just how it comes in. Like, I don't know. Maybe there was like one rebar factory that stopped fucking producing shit because they ran out. I have no idea. I have no idea. But, you know, it's still like, there's just, it's like, what the fuck? But yeah, I mean.
I think the only time I've seen non-rusty rebar is Hollywood productions.
Yeah, possibly. Where they've just made it on set.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, anyway, you know, she hasn't done winging it just yet.
Of course not.
Secondly, regarding me saying that if this happened and I took him to the emergency room, that maybe I would give my child in those extreme circumstances a tetanus shot. You are correct. I was misinformed, and I'm very happy to admit that. We're all on this journey together. But the reason I was misinformed is because I was told this from a doctor. A few years ago, maybe it was now 5 years ago, if you kind of see on my forehead, I have a little scar from having stitches. Maybe it's starting to go away a little bit. But I got hit by a car.
Just going to pause this here to say that I perked up when I heard that, and I ha-ha'd a little war within myself, you know, with me saying, oh, fuck off, no, you didn't. Mm-hmm. And me feeling some sympathy for this devil because I was hit by a car back in 2007.
Yeah.
And the research gear of my brain that immediately wanted to look this up about Candace, but I kept listening, and I heard.
And I had to go get stitches. I should be honest here and say that the car was parked and I ran into it. But it really hurt.
What?
I fell down. I was running in the rain and the car door was open and I ran right into that sharp edge of a car door.
Pausing.
Okay. Did she... Oh, Christ. I've not had an eye twitch in like 3 fucking weeks. Since I got my new fucking glasses. I've not had an eye twitch. Until right fucking now. Oh... Did she just say in the same fucking practical breath that she was hit by a car?
Yeah.
But she needs to be honest, and she actually ran into the car.
It was a parked car.
Parked car.
Here, I'll restart the clip.
And I had to go get stitches. I should be honest here and say that the car was parked and I ran into it. But it really hurt. I fell down. I was running in the rain and the car door was open and I ran right into that sharp edge of a car door. And my head busted open, and it was the first time I ever had to get stitches. And I went to the hospital, and after waiting in the hospital for like 2.5 hours, I finally saw a doctor. He stitched me up, and he said, we know, when's the last time you had a tetanus vaccine? I said, I don't know. I mean, it had to have been back when I was in school. And the doctor said to me, well, you're going to have to get one now. So I assumed, since this was such a recent injury within the last 5 years, that the doctor was advising me to do that because I had gotten this wound. I had never for a single second imagined that I had fallen for a little bit of a vaccine scam. And of course, what you're saying makes sense, and I've researched it. It's a prophylactic. So in an emergency scenario, prophylactic obviously isn't going to help you much. And so I hope that people read the information that I just gave them, that you provided, and we will include it in our links that are going up on Patreon this week. So thank all of you guys for writing in to clarify that one point. Now that we've finished that, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to jump into today's topic, which is pertussis.
So she fucking hit her head running in the rain.
Into an opened car door. Yeah.
And then somehow still managed to turn it into, but I got scammed into getting a vaccine.
Yeah. Yeah, without realizing, and I will say this as often as I need to, you get, if she's like, oh, I don't know, 5 years ago, okay, well then you should get a tetanus booster, just because, that makes good medical sense.
Yeah.
You don't know what was on this door. Mm-hmm. You're here for whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
Let's just cover the bases because your vaccine might be waning. Let's give you this one. You're going to be good for another 10 years.
Yeah.
What the fuck do you care?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, she was already in there for stitches, and stitches are expensive as is.
Yeah. When they do them. Yeah. I mean, no sympathy required for her, fam. Yes, she did jump into her first Patreon ad break.
Oh, already?
Right there. Yeah.
She hasn't even gotten into the shot in the dark material.
No. Anyway, you know what they look like on the recordings? You know that I know what they look like on the recordings?
What?
I do. I know what they look like on the recordings.
Oh,
when I'm looking at the little sound bar,
yeah,
and I'm making these episodes, I can tell you at a minimum how many ad breaks there are in an episode, just because I know exactly what the sound signature fucking looks like. It's the same goddamn one every time. I know exactly what they look like. And I'm always like, man, maybe that's not it. Maybe there's a different one. No. She cut the one ad and has been playing it ever since. Yeah. She did not include that information in her Patreon links that she talked about like, the doctors making money off of... Yeah, no.
Yeah.
She didn't include that in her Patreon links at all. Anyway, I go on to say it is standard practice to do this when a patient has an unknown vaccine history, because even though the vaccine may take time to work, tetanus takes time to infect as well, and this approach has a very low failure rate as opposed to doing absolute fuck all. Mm-hmm. But now, back and fresh from her Patreon commercial on a paid service, she is getting into the pertussis of it all.
Okay, pertussis, also known as whooping cough, also known as the 100-day cough. I just want to say that in my personal opinion, there is no other vaccine on the list for children to get that I think has more ample proof of being ineffectual. Maybe barring the COVID new one. But this one, it's astonishing to me that it is still on the vaccine schedule and that they keep adding more and more boosters of it to, I guess, try to overcompensate for its ineffectiveness.
Yeah, I'm going to stop her right there. Pertussis boosters come in the form of the DTaP vaccine run after initial childhood vaccination. And it is recommended to get boosted every 10 years, same as tetanus. And it's highly convenient that it is available right at the same time in the same fucking shot. This is because immunization to pertussis can wane over the 10-year period, and the reason to get the shot is to protect not only yourself, but also anyone that might be susceptible who may not be able to take it. Mm-hmm. In this way, the vaccinated are protecting the non-vaccinated as well as themselves, especially since pertussis is a coughing disease.
Yeah.
And we all learned a thing or two about that during Maine COVID. Anyway, letting her continue.
So, I guess to start with just when I say that you could find this everywhere, like you could find proof of this, it's so ample. You find this in the news. It's going to be, it's not something that you have to dig for or do much research into, because this is one of those tales where it's purely the vaccinated children that keep suffering from pertussis outbreaks, and yet people just kind of keep letting it happen and kind of go, oh, you know what, I know it keeps happening to the vaccinated children, but it's because they need more boosters. It's because they need more of the thing that's not working to prevent them from getting this. But before we even get into that, I want to tell you just a personal story.
Okay, look, I don't like doing short clips, but before she gets into her personal story bullshit or whatever, I wanted to say that her statement that vaccinated kids get pertussis is correct, but not for why she wants it to be correct. Pertussis vaccine has an effectiveness rate of 80 to 84% for up to the first 3 years after a vaccination, and it drops to 62% in the 4 to 7 year period. then falls to 41% on average 8 to 10 years after vaccination, which, as we've already said, is when a booster is recommended anyway. But the fact also remains that vaccinated children, even when they catch pertussis, exhibit far less severe symptoms than if they were non-vaccinated. This is similar to COVID vaccinations. I'm fully vaxxed and so is everyone in our home. I still caught COVID twice, post-vaccination. The first time, I basically sweated on the couch for 3 days straight. My wife sat right beside me, didn't catch it. She knew I was going through it, but she was vaxxed, so she just shrugged it off. The second time, I didn't sweat as much, but I still stayed home, but she caught it. It affected our senses of smell and taste for a few months. That was about it. Non-vaccinated people are still catching COVID and dying. So yeah, I think the vaccines are working just fine, considering my job has me in public spaces, interacting with people on a regular basis, even going into their homes sometimes to make deliveries. Vaccines are never a complete shield, but they are a generally effective barrier from the worst things imaginable. Now, it's Candace's turn to tell us about her fucking family.
Again.
I think I've mentioned this before, but me and my sisters are a very interesting study. I have two sisters, and we all made different decisions regarding vaccines. Like I've said, I am not anti-vaccine.
Yeah, you are.
I am pro-choice when it comes to vaccines, and I think that parents need to have the necessary information to decide what they want to do. So me and my sisters all got pregnant around the same time, within a year of one another, and we all had boys, and my eldest sister decided to keep her son on the vaccine schedule as it was. My younger sister decided to somewhat delay the schedule, but still do all of the shots, barring the flu shot recommendation. And then I decided to do no vaccines for my son. I think I've mentioned this again, but my sister's child, who stayed on the schedule, is the one that gets ear infections all the time and is always sick. My younger sister, her son recently got a horrible, terrifying cough, so horrible and so terrifying, and the sounds he was making was so scary that she and her husband rushed him to the hospital. And when he was at the hospital, she told me the first question that they asked her was, is he vaccinated? Of course, because that's the only thing that matters. And she said yes. And so that instantly allowed them to, I guess, employ some bias and say, well, of course it's not whooping cough because he's vaccinated. And they diagnosed him with croup. Now, for those of you that know anything about croup, you're hearing a lot about kids getting croup these days, which I personally think they're just not acknowledging that kids are getting pertussis and just saying that vaccinated kids, when they have this terrifying cough, have croup. And if you're unvaccinated, they say, oh, you know what, it's pertussis, it's whooping cough. My sister goes home with this diagnosis. It's supposed to be that croup lasts 3 to 7 days, 1 week. My sister's son has had this cough for 120 days, and they're still telling her it's croup. It's been a terrifying process for him to have it. Now he's at the end of it, so he still has a very weird sounding cough, but I kept saying to my sister, clearly this is not croup. If it was croup, he would not have had this for over 100 days. They are just refusing to give you the diagnosis of whooping cough because they are being trained not to. And I had nurses that wrote into me early on when I started discussing doing this series, and they were saying that this bias does in fact exist, and that they are trained that if the person says, if the parent informs them that their child is vaccinated, not to test for whooping cough, and instead to hand them a different diagnosis. And so I think that that is necessary to share with everybody, because as my sister was going through this and none of the medicines were working, I kept saying to her, you need to treat this as if it is whooping cough. We are fortunate that her child, like I said, is on the up and up here.
Okay, so Candace mentioned this early on in this series, but at least she saw fit to repeat it. As usual, there are elements here to the story that can't be proven, but there are elements that don't hold up to scrutiny in regards to common medical practice. Now, the economic situation of Candace's family is unknown. We don't know where they live, we don't know their economic status, and we don't know who their doctors are. So I had to look up what the common triage and diagnosis flowchart would be in this case. The fact is, pertussis and croup both have different presentations. Croup does not typically last more than a week, whereas pertussis can go much longer, around the 100-day mark. Pertussis also tends to cause vomiting, a whooping sound with air intake, and sudden fits of coughing. If a child has been exposed to pertussis and presents with even mild symptoms, procedure calls for a PCR test, which is a swab from the nose or throat. If it is croup, the treatment path is usually steroids and rest. The main difference between the two is that croup is viral and pertussis is bacterial, so they are treated differently. I'll be including a link to medlineplus.gov, part of the NIH, National Institutes of Health, National Library of Medicine, that discusses in plain fucking English the procedure for whooping cough tests. Anyway, further research on this brought to me what I think I said the last time that she shared this story, which is that a croup diagnosis should not last more than 2 weeks at a maximum. The kid likely was tested with a PCR test during that time, but a recurrent case of something like croup would call for further testing of the kid. There is no telling in the vast world of respiratory infections what he could have had if it lasted 4 months like she is saying. But if he was vaccinated and it was this severe, I have to think that pertussis was ruled out. But that doesn't fit the storyline, so Candace isn't about to share what it could have been. Anyway, it's time for us to let Candace go on a rant and fuck up a story that she knows her audience will not actually read themselves.
But just a little bit of an anecdote. Now, regarding pertussis, as I said, you can do a basic Google search of pertussis outbreaks amongst the vaccinated, and you will realize that this just keeps happening every couple of years. I mean, we've had outbreaks just all through the 2000s, 2010, 2014, 2009, so many outbreaks. And what is so unique about these outbreaks is it is just among the vaccinated children, right? So I want to point you guys to this amazing article. It is amazingly stupid. It's actually hard to write an article that is this stupid, and it's pertaining to an outbreak in Los Angeles County in 2019. And this is in the LA Times. Again, we're not on some weird fringe website. This is mainstream news, and it's covering an outbreak at Harvard Westlake. Harvard Westlake is a school in Los Angeles County. The headline here is Harvard Westlake students were vaccinated. Dozens caught whooping cough anyway. Now, if you read and you scroll down, you read through this article, first they tell us that in one school, all of the kids, 46 of them who caught pertussis, were fully vaccinated against the disease. And just a little bit of background information, by the time they turned 6, most children had received 5 doses of the DTaP vaccine, 5 doses. And then they must get a booster before entering the 7th grade. I mean, so that's a lot of doses for you to be having an outbreak at one school amongst 46 children. So you expect this article to maybe ask some questions, to say like, hey man, that's a bit weird. Like, is it plausible that the vaccine isn't working? But no, instead the article wants you to know that it's because what these kids need is more vaccination, like because the protection clearly wanes quickly, so they just need more and more boosters. And then it goes on to do something which is quite hilarious, which is blaming the parents, right? Of course, they look for any statistic they can hold on to say this is the reason why. And now it's become fashionable to blame moms, right? Let's blame the pregnant mother. If pregnant mothers had gotten the DTaP shot during pregnancy, then of course their children would be fine today, right? And so they give you this statistic, which is meaningless in my opinion. Only 52% of new mothers were vaccinated against Tdap, and the quotation they have is, if vaccination rates were higher, pertussis would not be able to enter a community in the first place. So pretty much no matter what, it's still somehow the fault of the unvaccinated, even though the only people that are getting pertussis are the vaccinated, right? That's the real kicker here. The article goes on to tell you that actually at the school where this outbreak took place, 18 of the students, I'm reading directly from this article, 18 students there have not been vaccinated against pertussis, but none of them has caught the illness, school spokesman Ari Engelberg said. What? Can somebody make this make sense for me? Can somebody explain to me how they're still blaming the unvaccinated children, right, and unvaccinated mothers, while also acknowledging that in this climate of a school, 46 vaccinated children caught this illness, and 16 of the unvaccinated children that were within the same school did not even one of them caught the illness. But it doesn't matter, because this is what they do. They will play a game of Twister, and they will say, it doesn't matter what you see, don't believe your own eyes. We still have to believe that this is only happening because somebody forgot to get their 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th booster. And then you have this, another example, by the way, that, like I said, there are so many examples to pull from: daycares, middle schools, high schools, of pertussis outbreaks amongst the vaccinated only.
Okay, yeah, please, only one lie at a time. Okay. So, I know I had to work the original show title in somewhere.
Yep.
At some point. Anyway, so before Candace can get into cherry picking and omitting content from another article, I'm going to let y'all know that I am including in the show notes an archived link to this LA Times article. You can check it out yourself and follow along, or just listen as I read it out. It should be noted that this series, A Shot in the Dark, came out in 2022, and Candace pulled this story from 2019. Anyway, it says, from the top, nearly 50 students at Harvard Westlake School have been recently diagnosed with whooping cough in an outbreak that has forced school officials to send students home at the first sign of illness. But all of the 6 students, I don't think I said that loud enough, but all of the 6 students had been vaccinated against the disease, according to school officials. In fact, all 90 people who have recently come down with pertussis, the official name for whooping cough, in Los Angeles County this year had been immunized against it, according to county officials. It turns out that 4 years after someone... I'm sorry, I lost my place. Okay. Turns out that 4 years after someone receives the booster shot in about the 7th grade, the vaccine's protection nearly vanishes, endangering high schoolers such as those at Harvard Westlake, said Dr. James Cherry, a UCLA expert on pediatric infectious diseases. It is not surprising at all, Cherry said of the recent cases. The outbreak is a real-life example of something that experts have been noticing since doctors switched to a new form of the pertussis vaccine in 1997. Immunity wanes quickly. The pertussis outbreak raises questions about how to best administer a vaccine when its protection fades so quickly. People now in high school are one of the first generations to receive only the new, shorter-lived form of the vaccine, which kind of makes them test cases for these problems. These recent whooping cough cases also serve as a contrast to the measles outbreaks across the country, which are mostly among people who declined vaccinations. In those cases, immunization probably would have prevented most of the illnesses. Los Angeles County officials announced last month that there were 3 clusters of whooping cough cases among adolescents across the county. 46 students have been diagnosed with pertussis at Harvard Westlake, where enrollment is about 1,600. So 46 out of 1,600. 18 students there have not been vaccinated against pertussis, but none of them has caught the illness, school spokesman Ari Engelberg said. 10 students at St. Anastasia Catholic School in Westchester also caught pertussis. All of them had been vaccinated, according to school officials.
Got the name St. Anastasia. I know
Right.
Anastasia is like an actual name, but
Yeah.
I always think of anesthesia.
Right? Yeah, it's spelled differently. Yeah. Under California law, children must receive all of their doses of whooping cough vaccine to be allowed to attend school unless they have a medical reason not to be vaccinated. By the time they turn 6, most children have received 5 doses of the diphtheria, tetanus, acellular pertussis vaccine, or DTaP. Then they must get a booster before entering 7th grade, which is your Tdap booster.
Oh, okay. That's where the difference lies.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The immunizations are concentrated in the earliest years of life because babies are the most likely to die from whooping cough, named for the sound people make when they're gasping for air. Quote, deaths virtually all occur in the first 2 months of life, end quote, Dr. Cherry said. But studies have found that immunity drops quickly after getting the shot. One study from Kaiser Permanente found that protection fell an average of 42% a year after the last childhood dose at about age 6. The rapidly waning immunity is linked to the kind of vaccine children receive, experts say. Before 1997, children received a form known as whole cell, which sometimes caused side effects such as convulsions and severe fevers. So officials switched to the current acellular vaccine, which has fewer side effects but does not provide immunity for as long. Even the middle school booster, intended to extend immunity, protects about 80% of people who receive it for about a year, but mostly stops providing immunity after that, another Kaiser study found. LA County public health officials said the recent cases may be focused in young adults because they are more susceptible to the illness because they received only the acellular vaccine. Quote, there is no increase in the current overall number of cases compared to past years, but the number of reported clusters has risen in 11 to 18-year-olds, officials said in a statement to the LA Times. Quote, waning immunity is a well-recognized phenomenon, ... and seems to be the most plausible explanation for the recent clusters seen by the department, end quote. Some scientists have suggested that it would make more sense to administer the vaccine in a targeted fashion, such as before an outbreak or when one has just begun. But Dr. Armand Dorian, Chief Medical Officer at USC Verdugo Hills Hospital, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, said waiting to administer it when an outbreak has begun doesn't make sense. At that point, antibiotics are needed. Quote, it's too late to do brush clearance. You have to come in with a helicopter and douse a fire, end quote, he said. Dorian said that even though the vaccine's immunity wanes, increasing coverage rates in the community would help prevent pertussis outbreaks. In the 2017 to 2018 school year, 96% of kindergartners had all their doses of the pertussis vaccine, and 98% of 7th graders had received the booster, according to state data. Both of those percentages dropped slightly from the previous school year. Doctors recommend that pregnant mothers get an additional dose of the vaccine so they can protect their newborns. But only 52% of new mothers in 2016 were vaccinated, according to a report from the California Department of Public Health. If vaccination rates were higher, Dorian said, pertussis would not be able to enter a community in the first place. The bacteria is much more likely to spread among people who have not been vaccinated. People who have been vaccinated and still get pertussis also contract a less severe form of the illness that is likely to be less contagious. So it's possible that the recent outbreaks originated with someone who had not been immunized, even though the disease is now spreading among people who have been vaccinated, Dorian said. Quote, once there's a chink in the armor and that unvaccinated population grows, then the actual protection of the vaccination significantly drops, even for those who are vaccinated, end quote. The real concern now is that a baby could contract whooping cough. Pertussis kills about 20 people in the United States each year, almost all of them being infants. The last person to die from pertussis in California was a baby in San Bernardino County in 2018. It's a cough, a whooping cough, which means it loves to spread, Dorian said. So, right there, it is saying all the stuff we've basically been saying about it. Moving on. Candace is going to bring up another case.
Here's an example of another school in Texas that had to shut down. 100% of the students, look at this article, 100% of the students were vaccinated against the disease. That didn't stop the outbreak. The headline here, and this is again foxnews.com, mainstream, whooping cough outbreak closes Texas school despite 100% vaccination rate. Make that make sense. This was in Houston, Texas. They had to close their doors. St. Teresa Catholic School, Memorial Park. We don't know what's going on. And what's so interesting is that when you take a look at public health, the public health response to these scenarios that are happening, not just in America, but all around the world. There are especially so many instances in Israel where there's a pretty much effective 100% of vaccination rates, where they keep having these outbreaks of pertussis. And the public health response is that, we did a follow-up and we can still explain to you why this is the fault of unvaccinated people, right? They do this sort of post-analysis to try to bend everybody's mind like a pretzel and say, don't look at the fact that your child's gotten 7 shots and still has pertussis. Let's try to figure out how we can still blame people that are not getting the vaccine. And here...
Okay, again, I'll keep saying it as often as I feel I need to. The high vaccination rate protected the students, even the ones that got it. I'm linking this article in the show notes, but it just comes right back around to what we've been saying here, which is that even though some kids got it, their symptoms were not extreme. A few of them were hospitalized, but no deaths resulted, and everyone got a longer holiday break than they had planned on. It happened during Christmas break.
Oh, well, that's honestly, yeah.
You know? There was no
That's a win.
Yeah, right? There was no follow-up printed anywhere because no one died or had to live on a respirator. Candace had to hunt for this one too because it happened in 2019. And recall that this show was originally recorded in 2022. You would think if this was happening more frequently, she'd have newer shit.
Yeah, like...
Yeah, she moves on with a really bad read, like the kind that would get you an F in a reading comprehension class, along with a story that proves she is either willfully not presenting it right or is frighteningly worse at this than I had assumed. This is going to be a long one as soon as I find it, because I am a professional. Like I have them numbered. It's just the way they wind up in my player is always weird. Yeah. All right, here we go. Like I said, this is a long one, so strap in, y'all. I'm not sorry. You all knew what you signed up for.
There's one article that attempts to do just that. This is an article that is from... you can go to the Harvard website. So this is harvard.edu, and it's so stupid that I have to read it. So they're doing a post-analysis of an earlier outbreak. This article is from 2017. So this is likely, a significant jump in the number of pertussis cases in the United States may be due to increasing numbers of non-medical vaccine exemptions. What? And if you scroll down a few paragraphs, this professor of public health at the Harvard Chan School says that there were likely multiple reasons for these outbreaks. Our paper shows two things. One is that when you look at counties that have a lot of pertussis cases, they are the same counties that also have a high level of vaccine exemptions, which suggests an association between the two. That makes absolutely no sense, right? Because my son potentially has a vaccine exemption, he doesn't actually have pertussis. So you're saying that because he's exempt, you've just decided that it's somehow the fault of the unvaccinated, even though the unvaccinated aren't actually catching the illness, and yet the vaccinated are catching illness? Like, think about how little sense this makes you. I mean, you have to be a Harvard professor. You have to be a professor of public health to come up with a thesis that's this stupid, right? This literally defies common sense. Oh, well, nearby there were kids that were unvaccinated. Okay, did the kids have pertussis? No, the kids didn't have pertussis. It doesn't matter. They're just unvaccinated. So we still need to look at these kids as disease riddled. And so we still have to think of this as somehow their fault. How could they possibly be passing a disease that they don't have? Make it make sense. You can't, because it doesn't make any sense. It's one of those things where we're no longer able to just stop and use our own critical thinking skills. For some reason, when it comes to vaccines, it's like we've just abandoned our ability to think critically, or not even critically, just common sense, those old common sense instincts that come from the gut. And here's, I guess, an analogy to give you. If I was selling you mosquito repellent, right? And I said, you're like, I don't want you to get bit by mosquitoes. I say to you, look, you have no mosquito bites right now, but it's mosquito season, and I'm making this mosquito repellent. And so I want you to spray this all over your body to make sure that you don't get any bites, right? And you say, okay, Candace, I'll take the mosquito repellent. And you put it all over your body. And then it turns out that mosquitoes just keep eating you and eating you and eating you. And your friend comes over and they sit down with you, and your friend is not getting bit by any mosquitoes, and he doesn't use a mosquito repellent. So you come back to me and you say, hey, I'm getting eaten up by mosquitoes outside there, Candace. I'm using the repellent, just as you said. What's going on here? And I say, oh, you know what? You actually need more of the repellent. You need to do ×5 of the repellent dosage, and then you'll be good. So you go back and you do ×5 the amount of the mosquito repellent. You go and sit down with your friend outside, and you're getting eaten up, and your friend's not getting eaten up. Wouldn't it make sense for you to then turn to your friend and say, you know what? The reason my mosquito repellent isn't working is because you're not using it. That's essentially what's happening right now with the vaccine industry. They've somehow convinced parents that in order for your vaccine, which isn't working, to have worked properly, you need the people that are not suffering from the illness to partake in the vaccine that's not working for you. It's madness. It's actually madness. It drives me insane that this happens over and over and over again, that healthy people who are totally fine, that are not getting bitten by the figurative mosquitoes, right, are being blamed for the people that are getting eaten by the mosquitoes. Oh, it would just work if you just did it too. We all need to take the mosquito repellent in order for mine to work. At what moment do you pause and go, hey, maybe this product is a scam. Maybe this product is not working. As I said, when it comes to pertussis, there cannot be more proof in the mainstream media that this vaccine, which they just keep adding more and more and more and more doses to because they say, oh, it just wanes quickly. How about it just isn't working? Do we have the courage to say that it's just not working? Do we have the courage to stop pretending that the kids that don't have it are the issue here, and that perhaps the vaccine manufacturers are scamming millions and millions of people? Nope, apparently not. Not when it comes to Big Pharma. We collectively do not have the courage to ever assume the obvious. We have to just say, oh, it must just be that we don't have enough. We must just keep blaming these healthy, unvaccinated children. We can't change what we're doing or ever look at them because they've grown too powerful, because they are funding the media, because they are using scare tactics. So we just become these mindless sheep. It's sad to say that, but so many of us, and once upon a time me included, guys, just become these mindless sheep and just keep repeating the talking points and saying, I know my kid got pertussis, but thank God he got the shot, because it could have been worse. That's the one that really kills me. You know, if only, I know he got it, and I know he suffered from it, and we all suffered from it, but it would have been worse if it wasn't for the vaccine that didn't work. That's where we're at right now in society, and it's sad. All right, guys, we're gonna pause right there and take a break before we jump into the ingredients. I'll be right back.
Okay, that was 5.5 minutes.
Fucking hell.
Does everyone feel older or dumber for it?
A bit, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sorry. Yeah. Anyway, Candace got the following wrong.
Yeah.
And this is the article in its entirety, but I want to point out, if anyone wants to read along, there are 2 links for the Harvard article in the show notes. Mm-hmm. The first one is the direct link she read from, poorly, that was posted to her Patreon.
Yeah.
That link, I followed it, and it took me to a present-day article about cancer research. Your mileage may vary, but I located an archived version of the article and included that in the link stack as well. So that is the one I recommend reading from if you're following along. This is from 2017.
All right.
Which is now 5 years behind 2022 when she originally recorded this, okay? Mm-hmm. So July 11th, 2017. The article goes on to say, a significant jump in the number of pertussis cases in the U.S. may be due to an increasing numbers of non-medical vaccine exemptions as well as waning immunity among those who have been vaccinated, according to a new study from Harvard researchers. The incidence of pertussis, or whooping cough, a highly contagious respiratory illness that sends people into coughing fits and which can be deadly, particularly in babies, declined significantly over the course of 4 decades after a vaccine was introduced in the late 1940s. But the number of cases started creeping back up in the 80s and the 90s, then increased dramatically in the mid-2000s. In 2012, there were 48,000 reported cases of pertussis in the U.S., the highest number since 1955. For the new study, the researchers, Carlin Allo, Martin Koldorf, and Barry Bloom, looked at 5 states that had pertussis rates in 2012 that were above the national average and for which there was detailed county-level data. For each county, researchers compared the incidence of pertussis with the number of non-medical vaccine exemptions. They also looked at pertussis clusters among 2 different age groups, 5 years and younger, and 10 to 14 years. Now what follows is the bit that Candace read and got wrong. There were likely multiple reasons for these outbreaks, end quote, said Bloom, Joan L. and Julius H. Jacobson Research Professor of Public Health at Harvard Chan School and senior author of the study, which was published online June 20th, 2017 in Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. Quote, our paper shows two things. One is that when you look at counties that have a lot of pertussis cases, they are the same counties that also have a high level of vaccine exemptions, which suggests an association between the two. Our other finding is that 10 to 14-year-olds who had been vaccinated were as susceptible to pertussis as kids who had never been vaccinated, suggesting that the vaccine's effectiveness was not long-lasting, end quote. Non-medical vaccine exemptions have been on the rise over the past 2 decades, with many parents declining vaccines for their children because they believe the vaccines aren't safe, although substantial evidence points to the contrary, Bloom said. In addition, a growing body of research suggests that some vaccines, previously thought to confer long-term protection against diseases such as pertussis, measles, and mumps, actually lose effectiveness over time. Given the study's findings, officials in states with high pertussis rates may want to rethink their policies on non-medical vaccine exemptions, said Bloom. While not all of the counties with high rates of vaccine exemptions experienced pertussis outbreaks, they are clearly at risk for outbreaks in the future, he said. Lead author Carlin Allo, who received the 2016 Dean's Prize for the outstanding thesis in biology at Harvard University Extension School, noted that only 2 states in the U.S., Mississippi and West Virginia, only those 2 states don't allow non-medical vaccine exemptions. And pertussis rates in those states are much lower than the states studied in the paper. Federal officials may also want to consider revising recommendations for pediatricians on when and how to give pertussis vaccines, said the researchers. Quote, our work suggests that maybe we should revaccinate teens to boost their immunity, end quote, said Dr. Bloom. Now, I know that was also quite a bit, but it was not what Candace said at all. The fact is, immunity to pertussis via the vaccine wanes over a period of 3 to 7 years from time of vaccination, and by 10 years a person is fully ready to be dosed again with the tetanus vaccine as well. But people that catch it, whether vaccinated or not, if they spread it to the non-vaccinated, the risks to them are much higher than the people with some degree of immunity. Candace's Gish Gallop there showed how much she is willing to not understand this, or is unable to understand this simple concept. I'd also like to point out that this article was even further back from 2017, which I mentioned earlier. But now, I would like to play the ad she puts in these shows, because it has been a while, and we all need to laugh at some suckers.
Hey everybody, it's me, your host of A Shot in the Dark, with a quick ask. My commitment, as I've already made clear to you all, is to keep this series 100% free. I believe the content is just too important to exist behind a paywall. That said, if you like this web series and you want to support us and help keep it going, you can do so by heading to www.patreon.com/Candace Owens. On my Patreon account is where you can interact with me, ask specific questions, and more importantly, find links to all of the government sources and websites that we use throughout each episode. You can also contribute whatever you can to the show to keep us going. Whether it's $1, $10, no dollars, or $100, we deeply appreciate your support. You'll also find different tiers of support and some great incentives to keep you engaged. Again, that's www.patreon.com/Candace Owens. Now, let's get back to the show.
Yeah, let's keep this program free and without a paywall, she says, even though it was published from episode 4 to episode 11 behind the paywall of Daily Wire Plus.
Also, I just have to say that music choice in there is very much reminiscent of the keep these dogs from being killed. After Hurricane Katrina, hundreds of animals were dumped and left behind by their owners.
Well, I mean,
send us money to keep these dogs fed so we don't have to put them down.
See, like, the thing is, right, in YouTube Studio,
yeah,
there is a library of, like royalty-free music.
Yeah.
I have to assume she pulled some royalty-free music because she doesn't want to pay anybody.
Yeah.
You know.
But that of all things.
Well, you know, because it you put it in the background.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I mean, I have to assume that for the people paying for Daily Wire Plus, it must have been effective because she's got, you know, like I said before, like about 180 people still on Patreon. No new episodes have been pushed to Patreon in 3 fucking years.
If anything, she's moved on to a different Patreon.
Well, I mean, now she's got Club Candace.
Yeah.
But I look in on the Patreon numbers every now and then, and they haven't gone down. I have to assume that people just set up the subs and forgot about them. At the same time, the minimum subscription is $20 a month. Now, I could understand, right? When we did a Patreon,
yeah,
you know, like I said before, I felt weird putting one up in the first fucking place.
Mm-hmm.
I felt so weird about it that our levels were like $1, $5, and $10.
Yeah.
Even at $1, I felt weird because I was like, what if someone needs that fucking dollar? You know, what if they're paying their bills and they forget about it and that dollar comes out and it bounces something they paid. They didn't pay their electric bill because they paid 2 idiots in Minneapolis. You know? Like, I felt terrible. I was like,
I have sat back before and gone, yeah, I can treat myself to this little $1 candy.
Yeah.
And then I get it, and then I'm sitting there and I go, and I look at my phone and I go, oh shit, my Discord bounced. What the oh.
Yeah. You know, that's the kind of thing that runs through my head. I'm like, oh man, like I don't want anyone to have to live with that, or like, you know, they don't listen for a while and they forget it and it just keeps coming out. It's like,
that's
man.
the one thing I can be thankful of people, like, of the times I've had my card stolen or just expire on me.
Yeah.
Is the amount of notifications I get from Google going, hey, you haven't paid for this. You need to update your payment. And I look at it and I go, I don't even use that anymore.
Yeah. Like, oh.
That's why I've been short? Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
See, and this is where I'm disappointed in Candace and her plugs, because that right there would have been the perfect time to plug something like Rocket Mortgage, which is supposed to help these days with tracking your spending.
Yeah, you know, it's
unpaid plug, by the by. Just saying,
right.
if we actually had those things.
Yeah. I mean, that's what kills me, though, is like, how many of these fundamentalists, you know, that are supposed to be like fiscal conservatives and shit are just fucking terrifyingly bad with money. You know, but yeah, I find it lazy, too, ultimately, that she didn't cut another ad for Daily Wire Plus.
Yeah.
For the Patreon. I mean, her show is a model of lazy bullshit, but this one always gets me. And those are the ads that I'm telling you that I can see them
and yes.
and go, that's going to be a fucking ad.
Yeah.
And then she leads up to it, and I listen to them every time, just in case one's different.
Just in case we get the fucking
just in case it
ranchers.
changes. Even if they change the fucking music, I'd be happy, but no. It's the same goddamn ad, and we are now like 8 episodes in on this 20-episode shit, and it's the same fucking ad. Now, here's the thing, right? Now, we know episodes 12 through 20 are going to be coming from Club Candace.
Mm-hmm.
I will scream if the goddamn Daily Wire Plus ads are on the new Club Candace thing. I will lose my shit. Anyway, let's get back to it. She comes back from that please pay me money break with...
Okay guys, welcome back. So let's just do a quick dive into the FDA insert for the Infanrix vaccine. That is what your infant will be receiving. to start their DTaP series. And I want to cut through this. I think now that we've done a few episodes of this, you guys know how to basically look at these and what is the best mechanism for reading these things. So you know they go through the BS. So the first few pages of we conducted our own clinical trials. When Big Pharma conducts the trials, there's never anything wrong. There's some pain at the site and sometimes no pain at the site, which is what I appreciate about this particular document. It tells you that they measured pain at the site, and obviously the infants expressed no pain. I don't know how the 2-month-olds did that. He said depending on how they cried, they were able to assess pain, and everything was perfect. It's just that it never is that way once they bring it to market. So they test, they say everything's perfect, they get the approval that they want, and then they have to insert this 6.
Yeah, so she picked one. But contrary to what she said there, of the 2 vaccines available, Infanrix or Daptacel, neither is more preferred over the other. Both of them do the same things and have almost the same schedule. Infanrix has more of the crucial components that make the vaccines effective, by my read of both, except that Daptacel contains Fimbria types 2 and 3, which are just enough to infect the lungs a wee bit and cause proper antibodies to form, basically. This can actually be beneficial down the line with coverage over pertussis. It's recommended that a single vaccine line be dosed to a patient, for all 5 doses. Mm-hmm. But they are interchangeable if one is available and the other one is not. I've included the links for both inserts in the show notes. Mm-hmm. But since Candace is on the Infanrix vaccine, we will be sticking with it for this show. It got lost in the cut a little bit if you're following along, but Candace is jumping way down the vaccine insert to number 6.2, which is on page 11 of an 18-page insert.
0.2 paragraph, which I think is the most important of all of the for all of the inserts, which is the post-marketing experience, which means these are the moms, this part, the moms that lie and take an hour out of their day to fill out a form and say what happened when they brought their child to the doctor. Most significant portion. So there are just so many reactions here, and you can read through it yourself, but first and foremost, bronchitis, cellulitis, respiratory tract infection, anaphylactic reaction, hypersensitivity, it goes on and on and on, apnea, cough, all of this, rash. So you've got all of these things that could potentially happen that are being reported in the VAERS system, I'm sure, is where they're finding this. And then here's the last one that I want to take a look at here under general disorders and administration site conditions. Bam, right there it says sudden infant death syndrome. It's just, to me, you'll recall that last episode we talked about this. We talked about the Italian study that examined the nervous system of 100 SIDS victims for whom they had detailed clinical data available, and it found that 12% of SIDS deaths occurred within 1 to 7 days of the infant receiving the hexavalent vaccine for diphtheria, tetanus, acellular pertussis. So after 7 days, 1 to 7 days, within 1 to 7 days after receiving the DTaP vaccine, they found that this was the common thread, that 12% of the SIDS deaths were occurring. And here you have right here on the insert that they have been recording that response. Well, parents have been recording that response. And it's...
So let's talk about this. First, we discussed the Italian study in the last episode, and that Italian study is in the show notes. Okay. It was conducted in Milan on just over 100 infants, and it was not this vaccine. It was a different one called the hexavalent vaccine, and it included a different DTaP in the mix. The study that was done at the time included infants dosed with Hexavac, which has been pulled from the market, and Infanrix Hexa, which is the dominant one used among a group of 3 different vaccines in Italy. Hexavac was pulled due to concerns about long-term hepatitis B protection, not for safety or SIDS risk. The study period of that Italian study was 1999 to 2004. Moving on from that, Any death reported to VAERS, including Sid's death, flags the VAERS staff, who will attempt to obtain as much information as possible, including death certificates, autopsy reports, and medical records, to nail down what could have occurred. But that all said, reports to VAERS do not prove causality, and multiple studies have found no evidence that Infanrix or similar vaccines pose a SIDS risk. And if anything, they help keep the risk at bay. And it should be noted that SIDS deaths have risen among the non-vaccinated, not the other way around. You know? Because fucking logic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next.
Something that they, of course, try to say, oh, we can't tell whether or not this is true because we weren't in control of the study. I think that should almost have the most weight. On the following page, something to take a look at is that each dose contains the aluminum hydroxide as an adjuvant. So we know that this vaccine contains aluminum. We've talked about that in previous episodes, how dangerous that is. We've talked about how they have studied the brain in a lot of people that have autism, and they are noticing that there are a lot of metals in the brains, and I don't personally believe that any amount of aluminium is safe for an infant, let alone giving this vaccine 5-6 times before the infant even makes it into school. It just seems a little bit ridiculous to me.
Yeah, she finally got to it, but it is 2 pages down, not 1. Anyway, as we have covered before, the amount of aluminum in vaccines is so tiny, but so important, as it helps stimulate the response for the immune system to react to the vaccine being administered. Aluminum has been a key part of vaccines for over 70 years, and the amount in the full course of vaccines is far less than an infant will ingest in food, formula, and breast milk. If a child has kidney issues, that might keep them from getting vaccinated, and that is because aluminum from food and vaccines can back up in their system if they can't piss it away. But that is a larger problem that has to be dealt with, given how universal aluminum seems to be in everything. As for the ASD shit, autism spectrum disorder, she said at the end of that clip, we've covered it before as well. And yes, aluminum is found more often in the dead, dissected brains of autistic folks. But there is no known cause as to why that is yet. But vaccines are not to blame. She keeps going in the insert down to the next page.
And of course, if you scroll down, you also have the non-clinical toxicology, which is under segment 13.1. And it says what I always tell you it says, which is that they have not been evaluated for carcinogenic, mutagenic, or for the impairment regarding fertility, which lets you know that this vaccine, they cannot tell you what the long-term effects are of this vaccine. So it seems pretty significant for us to take a look at all of that when you are determining whether or not you want your child to get this vaccine, which is supposed to make all of these things better.
Okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't recall her saying that specifically about any vaccine previously.
Not to my recollection either.
Yeah. Anyway, Infanrix has not been tested for those things because none of the ingredients are known to be carcinogenic, mutagenic, or a cause of infertility. None of them in combination are known to have those properties either. And considering how many people have had them and continue to live full lives and reproduce, this is a bullshit cherry to pick. And now, not a Dr. Candace has some other shit to say about this.
Is it going to help your child with tetanus? I would say tetanus is not a threat to a child based on the numbers that I gave you in last episode. Is it going to help your child fight pertussis? I would say absolutely not, given the fact that all the outbreaks are amongst vaccinated individuals. I would like somebody to show me the proof that this vaccine is in fact a prophylactic, since they just keep saying that the effects keep waning faster and faster and faster. But in the process, despite your child not being protected any meaningful manner, I would say, you can risk your child going through all of these very real reactions. And so for me, this vaccine was simply just not worth giving to my child, especially if there is even a 0.01% chance. Forget saying that they've observed 12%, but if it was even 1.01% chance of a SIDS death, I would not at all be willing to give this to my child. And I think it's worth noting all of those things as a mother and as a father when you consider whether or not all of these doses of DTaP are worth it.
Yeah, they are worth it, because tetanus is fucking frightening and whooping cough sucks, but it's made easier to deal with if you're vaccinated. The outbreaks happening among vaccinated people is mostly due to the fact that most people are vaxxed and the vaccine wanes, so you get a fucking booster. No big deal. And before Candace jumps into viewer questions, I want to tell you all that I read the entire insert for Infanrix. It's not that hard, it's only 18 pages, and a lot of it is graphical sections of yes-no type stuff. Yeah. Anyway, there is a stunning amount of information in there that she skipped right over to cherry pick the two things that she did. So I thought she would jump on any of the adverse reactions or warnings and precautions, but she did not.
Huh. That's a surprise.
This is lazy, 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 even for her.
Probably means that somebody on her crew actually cherry-picked the items, and then,
Yeah, that's what I'm getting out of it, too. But, given our history with YouTube thus far, I expect the next clip to get this episode booted. But here we go.
I now want to jump into some questions that we received. Again, all of these questions that we receive are on Parler, so we get them from you guys on, I'm sorry, not on Parler, on Patreon, my Patreon account. So be sure to head to Patreon and support the show. If you support the show, you will have a chance of us reading.
She messed up there when she said Parler. Now, she was on Parler at the time.
Okay, but she wasn't taking questions from
On Parler, no. She was taking them from PayPigs on Patreon.
PayPigs.
Yeah, I'll let the clip continue.
Your question. So, first up, we have a question from Colleen. New to all of this research about vaccine risks, what is considered a vaccine injury? Is it less likely to happen if you give less vaccines and space them out? The information and decision making is overwhelming. I'm not a doctor, and I have to be very careful, especially in the era of censorship, of giving any medical advice. So I'm going to answer this as an opinion, and obviously, as I mentioned earlier, my sister tried the method of spacing the vaccines out. I think that every single time you get the vaccine, you are putting your child at considerable risk, and I think that is undeniable when you read the insert. What is a vaccine injury? I would say that if your child is suffering meaningfully after getting a vaccine, whether it's them having a seizure, whether it's your child going on and digressing, you're seeing so many children that suddenly stop speaking. If you're looking at these, you should be paying attention to the vaccine courts. If your child dies suddenly of SIDS a few days after getting a vaccine, I mean, there's a wide range of vaccine injury, Guillain-Barré syndrome. I mean, there are so many different ways to assess the injuries that children are receiving. I personally think for me that if I'm bringing my child in for a wellness visit and they're walking out and they are screaming and yelling and uncomfortable and they're vomiting and they've got a fever, I do not think that is a good thing to happen to a child. And given the fact that you know that it's not going to prevent them from getting this illness in the future. They say these are prophylactics. The majority of these are simply prophylactics. So really, this is up to the parents to decide what they consider to be injurious to their children. For me, I do not find any of the responses that children are getting when they walk out of this, even if it's a rash. So many parents are getting the head to toe rash, they're getting the eczema. I consider these little babies that are walking around with eczema to be vaccine injured. You go in for a shot, suddenly your kid breaks out and they get eczema for, the next 2 years they're fighting a skin condition. That is a vaccine injury. So
no, it is not. Eczema is not a vaccine injury. Included in the long list of links with this episode is the link to the actual FDA vaccine injury list. It is a PDF. Eczema is not in there. Death is right at the top. And death doesn't need much explanation, but almost every other major required vaccine is listed along with the time limits for court considerations of payouts. I dug further to find out if eczema is considered an adverse event in any vaccine, and it is considered a rare event. As in like a single digit of a single digit rarity. Yeah.
So a proper rare event.
Yeah. I am including a link to the National Eczema Foundation page about vaccines and eczema risks. It's a simple Q&A. It's very easy to understand. The main takeaway that I got from it is the vaccines are safe and are not themselves a cause of eczema, but certain ingredients in vaccines may cause flare-ups. So eczema predates vaccines for people. Candace continues on this question.
It's wide ranging. There's no one answer. And whether or not giving them less vaccines and spacing them out helps. My assumption, I couldn't tell you this, I didn't go this route, but my assumption would be that doesn't really make a difference. You're just kind of prolonging what the child is going through. Like I just gave you the example of earlier, my sister, her child got whooping cough. There's no question in my mind that her child does not have croup since it's been 100+ days of this cough, and it's been very serious and very scary for them to go through as a family. She still gave her, son just as many vaccines as my sister had given her. Maybe perhaps their system is better if they don't have to get 6 in a row. I'm sure that could potentially overwhelm their system. So there might be some methodology to spacing them out, but that's a better question to ask somebody who's actually a doctor and some parents who have been through it, because it's difficult for me to answer because I did not choose that route for my child. So I hope that helps answer your question, Colleen.
This question must have been submitted from the paid Patreon side, because I did not see it on the free side.
Yeah.
So I looked up whether or not croup could continue on past the normal 3 to 10 day cycle, or could reinfect a person. Reinfection is possible since it is a virus, but croup could also be misdiagnosed as pertussis in the early stages. However, as we said at the start, there is a simple swab test for pertussis, and any case of croup carrying on or showing as a reinfection is cause for concern, and there are testing methods for it. Included is a link from the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, who we mentioned previously as having been on the forefront of the rotavirus vaccine. They are CHOP.
Oh yeah, CHOP.
Yeah. The next question is especially and incredibly stupid, and is also not on the free Patreon side.
You could, if it was a Pokemon and it decided to take law school, it would be Chop Suey.
Chop Suey. That's good.
Okay.
That's good.
I hate myself a bit, but
you should. Yeah. It's okay. It's okay to hate yourself a little bit. Like, it's fine.
Yeah.
You should hate yourself a little bit, because otherwise, you become fucking Candace goddamn Owens. All right, so here's the next one.
The next question comes from Lisbeth Gomez. She says, "Hello, Candace. I've been watching your videos. A lot of information has been very helpful and has now made me doubt whether to vaccinate my future baby. I have discussed this to my husband, and we're still not sure which decision to make. We have 3 other children, and they did receive their so-called vaccines, except for the flu. It's been almost 5 years since we gave them their last one. Currently, I'm 5 months pregnant, and I will confess I'm a bit afraid when it comes to my due date. I would like to get more information before making the best decision for my little boy's health, whether to vaccinate him or not. I will continue to watch your videos, and I hope that I can get some advice from you in regards to the downsides of getting them vaccinated or not. I still have a few months before we meet our bundle of joy. In the meantime, I'm doing my research and taking my prenatal vitamins so I can deliver a strong and healthy baby. Thank you so much for your dedication, and I will continue to keep you in my prayers. May God richly bless you." That makes me very happy. It just makes me happy to know that you're researching and you're not doing something just because somebody else did it or because it's always been done. It's so foolish for us to do things just because it's all we know. And I just think that as parents, we have to do better for our children, especially given the environment that we live in, where I truly feel that the kids have never been sicker and they have never been more vaccinated. And these are, the statistics. And Elizabeth, I will say to you that even I had fear when I made this jump and decided that I was not going to vaccinate my son. I had no one to look to. My mother chose to vaccinate us. My sisters, who gave birth before me, were both deciding to vaccinate their children, even though they were going to do it at a different rate. I really did feel like I was swimming alone, but the more that I researched, the more that I dug deeper into the history of vaccines, the more that I was able to connect with other parents online, and to find different blogs and to really uncover a lot of the stuff that has been hidden. I felt more and more confident that I was making the right decision, and every week that passed by, and my child is, like I said, the healthiest amongst all of his cousins, and seeing how he just was not sick aside from having fevers every time he would crack a tooth, I became more and more confident in the decision that I had made, and I had realized that really the only reason that I had any doubt was because fear has been used as a mechanism to control so many parents for so long with advertising. I mean, just what I just showed you guys earlier in this episode with the tetanus shot. They're always showing you a scared child. They're constantly putting that pressure on parents that you could potentially be doing the wrong thing. Like, what parent in their right mind wants to hear that? It's a scary thing to go through, but that's their intention, to make you feel scared. And I think that knowledge is the gateway to overcoming our fear. So I want to bless you on that journey as well, and I'll keep you in my prayers as well, and I hope that you have a great birth, and I'm due soon too, so we'll be making decisions together, or at the same time at least.
So this fucking lady has already had 3 kids, vaccinated them, didn't say she ever had any issues, and now her fucking brain is getting cooked by fucking Candace fucking Owens, and she is unable to look at her own healthy kids and go, that bitch is crazy, my kids are fine. I mean, what the actual fuck? People like this, I just don't understand them at all. At least the kid will grow up in a house of vaccinated persons, but are they going to be protected at school or church or life?
Yeah.
Like, what happens if they get something a vaccine would have prevented, and then they mutate it just a little bit and pass it on to a sibling or a friend or one of their dumb fuck parents? This lady should have stopped at 3 kids, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Final question from her stupid pay pigs coming up.
And as a third and final question, we have it from Crystal. Crystal writes, did you know that the monthly visits that doctors do after babies are born are only because of the vaccine schedule? It's insane that they make you feel like you have to bring your babies to the doctor for a checkup when they aren't sick. Luke 5:31 says it's not the well that need a doctor, it's the sick. I love that. Yeah, I do know. I have expressed this in earlier episodes, but it was really weird. Once we made the decision not to vaccinate, we stopped taking our child to the doctor because there was no reason to take a healthy person to the doctor. Like, I would never go to the doctor myself unless I was sick, and yet parents have gotten into the habit of bringing their children, their healthy children, to the doctor all the time, periodically, to get shots that make them sick. It's really a backward system. And one of the things that I've also realized, which has been such a positive result of me not taking my child to the doctor, like, he's probably only been, I would say, we went to weigh him for the first few weeks of his life because they said, oh, he might drop weight. You know, I was breastfeeding. I wanted to make sure he was gaining weight properly. We stopped taking him before the vaccine schedule starts at 2 months because our doctor was putting a lot of pressure on us to get vaccines, and we just didn't really care, and we saw him growing beautifully. But one of the things that's been an unexpected positive result is that whenever I'm talking to my sisters who have both vaccinated, you start to realize that taking your kid to the doctor all the time makes you develop almost like a neuroticism, I guess is the best way to say it, is that they're constantly showing you charts of where your child should be, and they've created all of these one-size-fits-all charts. Your child should weigh this much, your child should look like this, your child should be reading passages in the Bible by this age, your child should be able to crawl, all of these things. And my sisters were constantly in this psychosis of like, well, why is her child crawling and my kid's not, and all of this stuff, and like, they'd be like, oh, well, he hasn't hit his milestones. I didn't even know what they were talking about. Like, I had no idea what milestones they were referring to, and I go, oh, I didn't realize that he was not hitting his 6-month milestone about her son. And my other sister goes, oh, he's not babbling, and he's supposed to be babbling by now. And the doctors had sort of removed their gut instincts with all of this knowledge, unnecessary knowledge, and they stopped relying on their own instincts, where I never had that trepidation with my son. Because I look at him every day, I'd be like, oh my God, he's developing so quickly, he's so strong, look, he's walking, he's doing this, blah, blah, blah. And I was able to just enjoy him growing up without having this quiet fear that there was always something wrong because I'm comparing him to every other child that's on the board, when the truth is that kids just develop at different rates, you know? So, of course, their kids are now walking fine, and one of my sister's sons is not talking. He's 2, but the other one is talking. The one that is talking, she thought he was autistic because he wasn't doing it. It's just like, I mean, it was totally crazy and completely created because they were just doing too many doctor visits. In my own opinion, I would say to them, like, you're putting yourself into a psychosis because the doctor is giving you all these charges that don't matter. And so I feel like I'm a more confident parent because I'm just kind of just more tuned into my son without the input of a bunch of doctors telling me where he needs to be or where he should be. So that's all I'm going to say on that topic. When we get back, I'm going to give you questions to ask your doctor.
Okay, so she did yet another Patreon ad.
In there?
Yeah. But if you missed it, among all that bullshit for 3.5 minutes, the original questioner was asking if Candace knew by her assertion that the reason for wellness visits is to give kids vaccines, and then she quoted a Bible verse.
Yeah.
But she didn't quote the entire passage.
Well, no.
Which is from the New International Version. Quote, "It is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance." End quote. Jesus. Meaning, in a way, that Jesus wasn't there for the people that were considered good, but was there for sinners. Now, that said, the Christian Bible is not a medical treatise.
No.
It's a religious book. I'm pretty sure we can find similar things in the Bhagavad Gita, the Tao Te Ching, and Buddha's Sermon on the Mount, among others. But we go to doctors for checkups and to monitor our state of being, and depending on a person's healthcare plan, doctor visits might be required. So this is almost entirely nonsense, in my opinion, for Candace to have gone on about. It's easier to track or catch developmental issues on the schedule, and that is why it exists. As for kids developing on their own time, they absolutely do, within reason. Matthew here wasn't nonverbal, but he didn't speak much to start with. But once he did, it was a lot of nonsense baby talk, but he was trying real fucking hard to be understood. I kept telling him when he was a baby, after he would do these really long tirades, he'd go on for a while, I'd say, "Hey buddy, I'm going to need you to say that again in English." And he would proceed to say more stuff in whatever his made-up baby language was. But he talked almost constantly until he got it right. People do develop on a general schedule, but I find it most ludicrous that a lot of these parents that blame vaccines for their kids' autism and then start doing harmful cures for them are often comparing their kids to other people with so-called normal kids. It's all bullshit. But Candace sitting there and advocating against regular scheduled checkups is a huge red flag, and possibly the most damaging thing she could say to vulnerable parents, taking her word as gospel fucking truth. Now what follows, after the ad break for Patreon that I've chosen to spare y'all from, is Candace doing DTaP questions for your doctor. Now what's funny to me about this is that she is doing this part at all when there is another video yet to come on the aspect she hasn't covered yet, which is diphtheria.
Yeah. Also, it feels a bit, didn't she usually do the Patreon question? She usually does the questions for your doctor and then the Patreon questions, right?
You know what? It's been so long. I think you're right.
Okay.
But I don't want to know.
It feels out of order for her.
Yeah. This whole thing is out of order. This whole fucking thing is out of order. Because the D in the DTaP vaccines, capital D at that,
is diphtheria.
Yeah. This is such a fucking production travesty that I cannot imagine she pays her people much at all.
Yeah, she started with pertussis, then went to tetanus, and has been...
No, she started with tetanus. This is pertussis. She has not covered diphtheria. That is next time. I know that because I'm living in the future, but that is next time is diphtheria.
Wait.
Uh-huh. What?
So she did an episode talking about how she was going to talk about the DTaP.
Uh-huh.
Talked about the T of DTaP.
First. That's what
And
fucked
is
me up
now
on the
is-
last one, because I was like, did I get it wrong? Is it TDAP? That's what had me fucking in my own head while we were doing the show.
Yeah.
And I was like, did I fuck up? You know? Like, that's how dumb fuck it was that my brain couldn't make sense of, why would you do tetanus first? You know? Why would you do tetanus first?
You should start with diphtheria. And
Yeah.
Why pertussis next? And
Yeah.
it's still not diphtheria.
No, it's still not, like, even if TDAP was the thing,
Yeah.
she's still skipping over the D. Yeah, like,
Yeah.
it's... Yeah.
Well, she doesn't like funny looking D's, so.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Meh.
Like, as we've covered, she may never have seen her husband's.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's just supposition on my part. I can't say, but
When it's a question of, you have a foreskin?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
that's...
right. Like, yeah. I mean, all of this is such a fucking production tragedy that I can't imagine she pays her people much at all. Because while I will admit that I'm an outside observer, this whole thing reeks of shoddy work as a tradition, not as a fluke. Mm-hmm. It just pisses me off sometimes that people just willingly believe and love this kind of crazy shit. Ugh. Anyway, there is only about 4 minutes or so left on this one, so I will let her go and start it up.
All right, guys, as usual, I'm going to wrap the DTaP with some questions that you can ask your doctors just to
Husband
get
should have
started
wrapped
in
it
the
up.
conversation so that you can make the best decision.
Figure
So
out
as a
the
parent,
joke.
these would be some questions that I would have if I was considering starting my infant on these vaccine series. So question number 1, the vaccine has aluminum in it. Scientific neurostudies have shown that aluminum deposits have been linked to autism. How much aluminum can you guarantee is safe for an infant? And can you point me to any study that verifies that? I will bet the answer will be no. At least from what I have looked at, there is no amount of aluminum that can be deemed safe for an infant.
We have discussed this many times before, but the safe amount of aluminum for an infant in general is well known, and it is 0.85 milligrams per dose of any vaccine, which when added up in the first 6 months of life is only about 4.4 milligrams total. The amount taken in breast milk injection, which Candace claims to be a breast milk mommy, the amount taken in breast milk ingestion is much higher than that 4.4 milligrams. The amount taken is 7 to 10 milligrams. And it's higher still in normal formula at 38 to 40 milligrams on average in that first 6 months. And it's higher still in soy-based formulas. 117 to 120 milligrams total.
Jesus.
And all of those numbers are across the first 6 months of life. The tolerable weekly intake is 2 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. So 0.85 milligrams of a shot every few weeks is a very tiny amount in an overall diet. Now that said, that 2 milligrams per kilogram of body weight, now I don't know, because I'm not Canadian, I don't know how to, I don't know offhand. I want you to tell me. Okay, yeah, you look it up.
Yeah. Well, I was
Pull up a calculator.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Pull
doing
up a
now.
conversion calculator. Okay.
Hang on, I need to... Fuck, that's, that would be mass, right?
I don't know.
Shit. Yep, mass.
Okay,
mass.
fine.
Okay.
I mean, you could have just Googled convert, but okay. Convert 10.5 pounds to kilograms.
That comes back with 4.76 and then a fuckload of numbers after that.
Okay. Now, I'm saying 10.5 pounds. Okay? Because that was your birth weight. How many kilograms is that?
4.76 kilograms.
Okay. So, you could have, from the time you were born taking in 2 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. 2 milligrams of aluminum per kilogram of body weight. So you could have taken in 8 milligrams plus
Of aluminum.
And the fact is, you grew, so that weight carries forward. This is only 0.85 milligrams, so less than a milligram
Yeah.
per dose of any vaccine given to an infant. It is just enough to trick the immune system into going, hey, we need you to work on this shit. Mm-hmm. That's what it's there for. That's what the aluminum adjuvant is there for. And she keeps going on with this crap. I bet they don't even know. Bitch, this is well-known shit.
Yeah.
This is well-known shit. For her to sit there and tell her audience otherwise always pisses me off. Next up, answer number 2.
Question number 2. Per the CDC website, only an average of 550 people in the United States were being diagnosed with tetanus before the vaccine rollout. That's effectively 0% of all Americans. Why would I need to fear this bacteria for my child? Why would I need to fear that? I mean, I think that's a pretty fair question. If 0% of people were getting this, why would I suddenly need to vaccinate my child 5, 6, 7 times with this? Doesn't really make sense.
As we have covered previously in the tetanus episode that YouTube fucking canceled, an average of 91% of people that got tetanus died prior to the vaccine. And because life is goddamned random, and tetanus can exist pretty much anywhere for weeks or years at a time, depending on various factors, getting the fucking shot not only saves lives, it keeps a preventable problem from clogging up hospitals. Next.
Question number 3. This I would love to see. I wish people could record their doctors answering this one. Why have all of the recent outbreaks in pertussis been amongst the vaccinated only, despite them having received so many boosters?
The vaccine being given is safer with less side effects, but it is also weaker, and it only prevents the vaccinated person from suffering the most severe effects if they catch pertussis, but it does not keep them from transmitting it. And since most people are vaccinated, it spreads regardless, but it affects the vaccinated less, and all of that data is readily available. Number 4.
Question 4 is in line with that question. It's why are the unvaccinated being spared from these outbreaks and yet blamed for them simultaneously?
So I'm including a link to the following information, which comes from Vaxopedia, where it was asked in the title, do more vaccinated or non-vaccinated kids get pertussis? As an aside, it says unvaccinated, but I think that is a bullshit word. And I despise it because they aren't filtering their blood to get the vaccines out, for fuck's sakes. Mm-hmm. They weren't vaccinated, thus I say non-vaccinated. But anyway, from the paper, while this seems like a simple question, the answer is a bit more complicated than most people imagine. Do more vaccinated or unvaccinated kids get pertussis? For anti-vaccine folks, the answer is clear. More vaccinated kids get pertussis. They put all the blame for pertussis outbreaks on waning immunity. Of course, that's not the whole story. While 10% of kids get pertussis, unless you are at a Waldorf school, it is unusual to find that many completely unvaccinated children. While 10% of kids get pertussis, plus we don't know the vaccine history of 40% of these kids. While it might technically be true that more vaccinated kids get pertussis in the average outbreak, that's only because there are many more vaccinated kids. A more accurate and useful answer, taking into account attack rates, makes it clear that a higher percentage of unvaccinated kids get pertussis in these outbreaks. In conclusion, we have described a school-based outbreak of pertussis that may have been fueled by moderate vaccine effectiveness combined with a failure to vaccinate. Terranella et al. On vaccine effectiveness of tetanus toxoid, reduced diphtheria toxoid, and acellular pertussis vaccine during a pertussis outbreak in Maine. In a pertussis outbreak in Maine, attack rates were much higher in unvaccinated kids, even though more vaccinated kids got pertussis. While 29 of 214 vaccinated kids got pertussis, a much higher percentage of unvaccinated kids got sick. 6 out of 28. That means your risk of getting pertussis was much higher if you were unvaccinated. A 2013 pertussis outbreak in Florida is a good example that even with all the bad press it gets, the DTaP and DTaP vaccines work too. This outbreak was started by an unvaccinated child at a charter school with high rates of unvaccinated kids. About 30% of unvaccinated kids got sick, while there was only one case, quote, in a person who reported having received any vaccination against pertussis. So 30% of the unvaccinated kids got sick and only one case in a vaccinated person. In another 2013 pertussis outbreak in Florida, this time in a preschool, although most of the kids were vaccinated, the outbreak started with, quote, a 1-year-old vaccine-exempt preschool student. And the classroom with the highest attack rate was, quote, one in which a teacher with a laboratory-confirmed case of pertussis who had not received a Tdap booster vaccination worked throughout her illness. End quote. Why do so many unvaccinated kids get pertussis these days? Quote, we found evidence of an increase in exemption rates, spatial clustering of non-medical exemptions, and space-time clustering of pertussis in Michigan. There was considerable overlap between the clusters of exemptions and the clusters of pertussis cases. End quote from Omer on geographic clustering of non-medical exemptions to school immunization requirements and associations with geographic clustering of pertussis. So, besides the fact that they are unvaccinated and unprotected, quote, children of parents who refuse pertussis immunizations are at high risk for pertussis infection related to vaccinated children. Herd immunity does not seem to completely protect unvaccinated children from pertussis. End quote from Glands on parental refusal of pertussis vaccination is associated with an increased risk of pertussis infection in children. So they can't get away with hiding in the herd. Another important consideration, in addition to the fact that more unvaccinated kids get pertussis, when they get pertussis, it is more severe than those who are vaccinated. Quote, serious pertussis symptoms and complications are less common among age-appropriate number of pertussis vaccines, AAV, pertussis patients, demonstrating that the positive impact of pertussis vaccination extends beyond decreasing risk of disease. McNamara on reduced severity of pertussis in persons with age-appropriate pertussis vaccination, United States, 2010 to 2012. So there are your fucking answers. Link provided. But Candace feels the desire, nay, the need, to close out with more bullshit and a final combative question that I fear, if asked, may cause a doctor to sigh and quit on their moron patient and, unfortunately, the child of said patient.
And as I said, just a basic Google search and you will see all over that it is these vaccinated groups that are getting pertussis, and yet they're saying, oh, well, they live close to the unvaccinated people that aren't getting the pertussis. Makes entirely no sense. And the last question, which I think is the most significant, question number 5, I would say to the doctor, the DTaP vaccine insert clearly lists sudden infant death syndrome as an established post-market adverse event. This vaccine correlation was also established in post-mortem SIDS studies. Why do you feel this vaccine justifies that risk?
As we have said before, SIDS has to be included as a risk, period, because there is no known cause. Anyway, no study done has ever linked vaccines with SIDS. The Italian study she mentioned, as we have covered before, was for a vaccine administered not just in Italy, but across the EU at the very least, and they only had 110 cadavers to work with across a 10-year period. It is intellectually dishonest, at the very least, for her to downplay the significance of tetanus infections and deaths, which had a 91% kill rate, and unfortunately still does for people that get it in the developing world, but it is dishonest of her to compare that with SIDS cases that are so very goddamn rare among millions of vaccinated infants in every year. Fucking absurd. Time for her to act high and mighty, though.
think you will have some doctors that are going, oh, I can't believe you could even ask these questions. I never knew this stuff because I went to medical school and I learned very quickly that all vaccines are good. And I don't really know the answers to any of these questions, so I'm going to stutter a bit and pretend that I am a professional and you're not, and then probably get angry at you and tell you to never come back because I can't answer the questions. And I'm an expert. You guys, that is all that we have on the DTaP series. Please write in more questions, more comments. I'll bring them up next week. If there's anything that I've missed here that you'd like to be covered, let me know. Next week we'll be rolling into the HIB, that is influenza type B vaccine. So buckle up. It's going to be another fun episode. Thanks guys so much for watching. And don't forget, if you have not already, support me on Patreon. You can find me, Candace, on Patreon, patreon.com/Candace. You can literally just give $1 every month. It would help to keep this going. You know, this is basically a 3-person shop, and we have goals to make this a very big episode, a very big series, and hopefully next season, I don't know when that's going to be, but we want to be able to bring on experts, bring on doctors to talk about this more thoroughly, people that are more well-versed in all of these things and have been saying this for years, giving them a platform so they can talk about it, help us reach our aims. Do not shut down this episode without heading over to patreon.com and becoming a person that donates to this show. It would be so appreciated, guys. I'll see you next week.
Hold on. Yeah, she never once addressed diphtheria. She will in the next episode, which I have not listened to yet. But I really hope it's an egg on her face moment. That bit at the end was her theme music that I usually spare you all from hearing. But I chose to leave in this time. She's the fucking worst. So...
Just skip right to HIB. Just...
Yeah.
I was expecting to hear her say, next episode's going to be on diphtheria. No, HIB, the flying fuck.
See, now, she said all that stuff, but what I heard, what I originally translated to in my head was, support my show because even though I am a millionaire married to an idiot that may be using me as a shield for his masculinity, I need your money, you fucking dopes. Mm-hmm. That's what I got from that last Patreon appeal.
Yeah.
Anyway, I mean, what the fuck? Anyway, let's drink something else from Lithuania.
Figure out what that's going to be this time around.
Oh, it's... I think we're going to leave the last translated bottle for next week.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to go with the one that has a little bit of English on it.
Alright. Oh, that one.
Yeah, the short one. From... Gubernia Brewery. Bread Kvass. Dark Rye. So, this one actually has, like, a lot of English on the back.
Oh.
Yeah. This was actually the first one. I visited Paradise Market the first time before I took your mom over there. This was actually the first thing that I saw on the shelf. And I was like, oh, shit. Never had that before. And then, you know, it's a 330 milliliter bottle, which for us Americans is 11.16 fluid ounces. I know that fancy material because it's right there on the label. Now it says here it's a fermented bread soft drink. The ingredients are water, sugar, breadcrumbs, which are made from roasted rye malt, rye flour, and water, and also citric acid and carbon dioxide. It's pretty straightforward, actually. It says in here, natural sediment is possible. Exclusively imported by B&I Overseas Trading Incorporated from Van Nuys, California. Product of Lithuania. Yeah, it has a little lot number on here. California redemption value, and then we get into nutrition facts. It's 120 calories. That's 1% of your daily sodium, 10% of your daily carbs. No protein, no vitamins. Just drink if you like, you know? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Just, oh, God. There's...
yeah, like I said, that was the first one that I saw, and then I saw the other ones when I went back with your mom, like, it was the next day or a couple days later. And, yeah, I got the 4-pack.
Yeah.
We have there, which...
We're down to one, so
Yeah, we're
gonna
down to
need
one next
go
week.
over there. Yeah.
Oh, let's give that a... Yeah, go ahead and pour it out. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Does it smell like the other one?
It smells like a less alcoholic version of the other one.
It does. It definitely smells like rye.
Yeah.
That is interesting.
It's funny, because I used to know a guy who would go by rye. So, it's kind of a funny thing whenever I smell. And it's got a fucking head on it.
Nice. It really does.
Yeah. Here you go.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a small bottle.
Yeah. It's a small little, like, stout bottle. It's a good little boy. Oh, yeah, that definitely smells like rye bread.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. These are definitely meant for you to drink out of, though, because it started running down the side.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
Give it a shot. That is a dark rye bread soda.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm partial to rye bread, so I'm really digging this. Wow, goddamn.
Yeah, I don't mind a good rye bread myself.
Good lord. You know what, too?
It's liquid rye.
Yeah, it really is a rye bread soda. Yeah, the fucking... Oh, that is entirely unique.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, I have not tried in any way whatsoever to learn Lithuanian at all. But what I'm getting is this bottle had kvass printed on it. KVASS. I'm probably saying that wrong. But it had that printed on it. The other one had the same word.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that's maybe what they are. Just like you put like cola on something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you kind of have like a general thing of what that's going to taste like and do to you. I think maybe that's for like rye bread soda or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's quite good.
Well, because this one says bread kvass.
Yeah.
The other one
still
also
have the
had.
bottle?
Yeah, it's still over there.
Okay.
I keep all 4 of the bottles for the rotation in case we have to refer back.
Right, right.
Not to mention, I mean, look at that bottle. Like.
Oh yeah, it's a pretty bottle.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one, yeah, Imperial Kvass.
Yep.
And it was Gira, but it still says right there,
Okay.
Imperial Kvass.
Yeah. I think kvass is. You're probably right. It's probably their thing for.
Probably something for rye soda or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's not as strong as the other one. The other one did have 1% alcohol in it.
Yeah, and the head fell away on this a lot faster. The other one stuck around like the Guinness.
It did, yeah.
That is solid.
It's wild how good that is.
Yeah.
Like the thing is too, it's a clean soda. Like it goes down real easy. It's even with the head, it wasn't super fizzy, but it doesn't feel weird on my teeth like cola does.
Well, the other thing too is like if you hold it up to the light, it's got that like movie root beer amber color to it.
Like root beer cream soda kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no caffeine in it.
No.
And not a whole lot of sugar. It's just a fucking rye bread soda. It's so wild.
Yeah. No, yeah, there's a guy who I'm gonna guess he's Swedish, but he makes fun of Swedish influencers reviewing American products.
Yeah.
And one of the ones I saw him do was, today we're trying famous American soda, Sprite and 7-Up.
Oh, God.
So full of sugar. And it's a funny piece of satire that he does. But it still is... feels like the opposite of that of, yeah, this is actually a pretty clean soda.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, it is, though. It's so wild. It's so good. Like, that bottle was only, what, $3? I think it said on the cap. $2.99.
Yeah, $2.99. And that's just at singular price, because remember, if you do a bulk thing, they'll...
Well, I don't know if they do a bulk thing like that. I just know I got 4 of them.
Fair enough. But, well, that's Well, I don't know about for the sodas, but at least for their candies. Holy shit for their candies.
Yeah, well, their candies are like $7.99 a pound.
Yeah.
Like, which is just crazy. Oh, God, if you ever go over there, you got to get the ham.
Yeah.
Get the deli ham. Holy fuck.
Well,
It's from Poland.
See, I'd like to go over there the next time y'all head over there, provided I'm not working.
Right. That was the deal this past time. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I didn't go. Your mom and your sister went.
Yeah.
But no, I didn't go on that one. But
and the first time around.
The first time technically was me.
Yeah.
And I was like, this shop is cool. I'm coming back in here with my wife. And then we came back in there, and we got all the shit that we got. And then they went in over there, and they got all the shit they got.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the only reason why I didn't go with you and Mom was because I had already had a week at work, and I was just like, I just want to sit on my ass and
Yeah.
do nothing.
Well, we just kind of like needed a day out anyway, and we went to the Tibetan place first.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tibet Corner in Hopkins, so good. Oh my God, so good. And when I told that man, I'm ordering the hot. Your mom got like the mild.
Yeah.
She didn't want to fuck with it. She knew better. She's smarter than me. But I got the hot beef. I don't remember what the beef dish was, but the rice was perfect. It was loose and it mixed with the beef dish really well. The naan was perfect. We ordered a garlic naan and an original naan. And yeah, I mean, that beef lit me up in the best way. Like, and I kind of needed it because it was kind of like a cold, wet day outside.
Yeah.
You know, and I was like, well, I want this, and I'm going to make an excuse for it. So, yeah, no, it was very, very good though. I've like Tibet Corner is a great shop, and Paradise Market is literally down the street from it. So they're both really cool places in Hopkins. But yeah, unpaid plugs. I have not told either of those owners that I would ever be plugging them, but I just did. So, you know what's funny about that drink? I feel a little warm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I'm feeling a little warm in my arms. Wow, that's some good shit.
Yeah.
God.
You know, if ever, well, actually, provided things go right with my friends and they get married,
Yeah.
I'm going to end up meeting one of the guys in the D&D group. He's going to be the minister at the wedding. Yeah. Since I'm going to be meeting him, he served time over he was stationed in Ukraine for a little while. Just, you know, one of those situations. He was just stationed there. And
I want you to understand, serve time indicates prison.
Right, sorry. Well, I mean, to some, the military is prison. But no. He did his tour, whatever the fuck it's called over there.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was on the border between Russia and Ukraine.
Okay.
He was just there to basically be part of the peacekeeping force of, hey, can you two not shoot at each other?
Right.
Well, while he was there, he had so many, like, sodas and foods and shit that he could only get his hands on while he was there.
Yeah.
And part of my brain's going, well, if I'm going to be going out of state anyway, I might as well grab some of these things on the way out of state for the wedding.
Right.
And just take them with me and go, hey, you remember this?
Right.
This little slice of goodness?
Yeah. Where did you get this? A little shop in Minnesota. You'll never find it. Boy, all right. Well, let's cut this, and I will send it up to the interwebs.
Also reminds me, last little bit, at least for me, probably not the target demographic for this, but fuck you, PlayStation, we have Helldivers now.
Right. Yeah, Helldivers 2. A game which I am not installing on my computer. I am waiting, not computer, sorry, Xbox. I am waiting for The Outer Worlds 2.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that too.
Oh, my God. That one, I might actually buy that the day it's released if it's all good and not fucky. But if it is fucky, I'm going to wait until they fix it, and I'll pay for it. Because it'll be on Game Pass.
Yeah.
But fuck me, The Outer Worlds was such a good game that I am there's a lot of shit that they could do wrong, but I don't think that Obsidian's going to do that.
No, it's Obsidian for Pete's
Yeah.
sake.
All right, well, let's cut this, and
Yep.
we will see you all again in a couple weeks.
Yep.
Hopefully, we're able to do this again in a couple weeks, because Trump and we have no idea. We have no idea. We have no idea. Yeah.
I mean, we're supposed to have a UFC match on the lawn now.
Yeah. Oh God, so much crap. So much crap we don't cover here because everybody else says.
Yeah.
I mean, our focus is Candace, and I can tell you that I haven't gotten quite into her real December content yet from the hiatus for us, but she was so loving Trump early on.
Yeah.
I'm hoping I catch the point where it flipped.
Yeah.
Like that's what I'm hoping for. All right, everybody, have a great one, and we'll see you again in a couple weeks. Bye.
See you in a couple weeks. Bye.